We've watched a Riot MMO video before. This one is quite long, but I'm down to watch the whole thing. I am so excited for this game that's gonna come out in like 20 years' time.
Well,
Oh,
I'm back. Last time we had a look at the world of Riot
he's wearing the same outfit.
MMO, and we talked about how the overall world design has
Let me
been
know if
done
it's too
for a
quiet or
few
too
years
loud.
now.
Let me get a bit
If you
louder.
have no idea what League's universe is about, I would recommend watching that one first. But now that
We've
learned
seen
about
that
the
one.
basics, we can dive into the other big MMO topic. The playable races and classes. When it comes to the races, just like the world, they are pretty much done. Over the years, the lore fleshed out the races of the era. And now...
Who was that? Thank you, dim-witted raider. Thank you for downloading Read. Thank you.
they each
Right,
have their
let's
own
go.
unique story.
Thank
In
you.
fact, at this point, it feels like we know Riot will not make up a brand new race. Of course, they could always theoretically do it, but I seriously doubt they would.
Yeah,
Because that
there's
would
no
be like
need.
forcing a new race into the world of Lord of the Rings. It would feel off among all the already established rules. I strongly doubt you wanna put a bunny person next to Aragorn. With that said, don't worry, because the lore will allow Riot to make up new races and make them feel natural. I'll show you their clever system in just a moment. But for now, just know that yes, we already know the races of this world. So the question is not going to be what races Riot is going to make up. The question is going to be, from the races that already exist, which ones will be playable? And perhaps more importantly, how will they be playable? You see, a few years back, I released a similar
You're playing
video where we
Bard's
talked
race?
about the class.
What's Bard's right? Isn't Bard like a god or something? I want to be a Yordle.
Classes and the races together with TB Skyen. And today, I would not recommend you watch that video. Back then, I was still clinging onto the idea that faction-based MMOs were a good idea. It worked for WoW, and it worked for my guilty pleasure, WildStar. Unfortunately, what I didn't know is that merely a year later, the idea of faction-based MMOs would crumble to dust. That's because factions have a massive flaw. Besides the fact that PvP is almost guaranteed to be one-sided. I mean, who would want to play for the losing side? Especially if there is no compensation.
I don't play WoW. Is the faction system in WoW annoying? What does it mean? Is it Horde and Alliance? Okay, why are you lamowing Alliance players? Horde always wins? Oh. So if I started playing WoW now, I would just join the winning side, which is Horde.
Classic WoW is a perfect proof of that. Not to mention...
Hang on. So there's only like one server where it's like kind of nearly even? It essentially splits your community in half, inhibiting people from playing with each other. So if one faction was one-sided, the other would quit, and the people playing on enemy team wouldn't have fun. Right. See, is that kind of like how New World would have ended up if it had been a good game? Although I played a bit of Albion, well, where I played, it was like it was just completely balanced. But there's like fights going on all the time, and it's constantly, the borders are like constantly shifting and coming back. And
WoW is a perfect proof of that. Not to mention New World. But also, if
There
you
we
split
go.
everyone into two sides, you are splitting up your player base. And that is almost never a good idea. You simply don't want to prevent people from playing together. The reason why in the past it worked for WoW is because Blizzard heavily played into the faction pride. People were proud to fight for the Horde or the Alliance. But even back then, it really wasn't perfect. And then people started min-maxing the game and they realized that factions didn't matter. And that's where Riot has the edge. You may know that League of Legends has a lot of different regions, where they all act independently and they all have unique relationships with their neighbors. Because of this, forcing faction alliances into this world would ruin the already established lore. so PvP factions are most likely not going to be a thing. However, despite that, League absolutely has faction pride. People love it when a new Shuriman champion is announced, because people love that place. And people love it when the new champion is not Ionian, because goddamn we have too many Ionians. Nearly every League of Legends player
how many
has a favorite
Ionians?
region. And you bet when the MMO comes out, people will want to play for that region. And this is...
What's your favorite region? Actually, just right now talking with you guys, and what race would you play? I literally only know about Zone, Bandle, City. Once a Bandle gunner, always a Bandle gunner. Mine's always been Freljord, the one where Draven is from. Noxus? You go Freljord? I'm gonna be a Yordle if I can. I hope they make Yordles playable.
The brilliance of Riot's world kicks in. You see, the fundamental lore of League of Legends is based on the idea...
Sorry, the fairies are Vestayan? Oh, Vestayan! That's what Thingy says, isn't it? They used to live in Ionia, but they are almost extinct now. Ah. So maybe they won't make you be able to be a furry. But if they want the Final Fantasy community, they should make furries a playable race.
That anyone can be from any region. After an event the story refers to as the Westward Migration, races mixed up all around the world. So it's not like there is a furry region where you can only see furries. There are definitely regions where you can see more furries, but this world doesn't have exclusives. This means that when you're picking up what you want to play, besides just picking a race and a class combination, I strongly suggest Riot also allows people to pick their origin, with the origin being the starting region. Without a system like this, you would force all human champions to be, for example, Noxian. And that is simply not how this world works. So, I've been mumbling about how this world works for quite a while.
Yeah.
So now, let's actually dive into all the races that exist in this universe.
Go on.
Spoiler alert, League doesn't have too many different races, because it's focusing on depth over variety. Of course, as it is with any RPG, there is the human race. But it would be cool if the humans varied depending on their origins. For example, if you pick a human from the Freljord, they would be an Iceborn and they would have extra frost resistance. A Demacian could have a bit more magic resistance, Ionians could have a bit more nature resistance, Shuriman's heat resistance, and so on. I think it's going to be crucial for Riot to preserve the feeling of every origin feeling at least slightly different. This is an RPG after all, and despite the fact that balancing is usually a big...
Am I insane? But didn't they confirm... Didn't he, in the last video that we watched, didn't he already say something about how they didn't want any racial abilities? They confirmed no racial. Was it in his last video, or was it the tweets from the lead developer?
Issue. I strongly believe these RPG elements have to be preserved. But if Riot is afraid of people min-maxing the game from the very beginning, focusing on the origin stat with the most value, Riot can always do the safe thing and only give each origin different customization. In the Freljord, people tend to be...
I hope they don't have racial abilities. I don't know why he's phrasing it as if they would be scared of it. I don't think they should have. What if you want to change what you look like? Imagine min-maxing and not just going with the one you think is the coolest looking. Yeah, but like that's how gaming is changed. Like now it's all about min-maxing. You know, you go online, you watch your streamers, you watch your videos, and you find out the best way to do the thing 0.1% better. So you do it that way. That's why I watch you, so that you know the best way to do the thing. Eventually people will always do that. Yeah. Like now, like there's so many. Yeah, this MMO needs to. It just needs to be different. It's never gonna be like what MMOs used to be like. It's not gonna work like that.
more pale with lush beards and Nordic tattoos all over their bodies. Shamans have the classic dreadlock style. People from Bilgewater have the pirate crew tattoos. Piltovans are your fancy mustache people, and Ionians have the wild untamed hair and beards. So even without special origin stats, I do believe these unique character customizations would enhance the region pride too. So that's what humans would be about.
Region
Pretty
pride,
versatile and nothing too
guess.
special in an RPG world. So now let's have a look at the more unique races. After humans, the second most spread out race are the Vastaya. As we mentioned in the last video, the Vastaya are a race that came to be after humans started mating with magical animals. But the thing is, depending on where they are from, there are loads of different kinds of Vastaya. From cat boys to fox girls to lizard girls. In fact, here's a family tree of all the Vastayan tribes.
What? Vastaya. So Ari is my beloved Jewel of Ionia. Wait, who wrote this? Where's Zaya and Rakan? Is Warwick Vastaya, or was he just an experiment? Warwick is some cursed kid from Zorn. Ah, okay. So he's not one of these.
Even this doesn't cover all of them, and this is where Riot can pull off something genius. As I said, this world already has set rules, so it would be very difficult to introduce a brand new race into this universe. However, it is going to be very easy to just make up a new Vastayan tribe. So I propose that Riot doesn't make the Vastaya as a playable race overall, but instead it would be cool if Riot let the specific tribes to be playable races. This would leave the door open for them to introduce new playable races later down the line. If they cross off all the Vastaya at once, they kinda shoot themselves in the foot. But I know, here I go mumbling about how the world works again. So let's have a look at some of the specific tribes. When I say Vastaya, most people think of Ari. She comes from the Vasani that look like foxes. Although her tribe is mostly gone, the lore can justify new members to be found, so they can be playable. The Kilash tribe comes from the jungles between Shurima and Ishtal. These lion-like people are known for hunting dangerous beasts, and they take great pride in trophy collecting. It's the average mount collector. The Shimon Tribe are monkey-like people from Ionia. While their older members are very wise, their younger members can be very goofy. The Otrani come from Mount Targon, resembling the classic goat people. Their hobbies are taking care of the Stellarcorns. The Lowland Tribe are Ionians who resemble bird people. This tribe likes to combine the art of dancing with lethal assassinations. The Uvikat are
Dude, no, you're so right. Wild Rift looks so good. Look at this.
Assassination.
I'm still so mad that Senna got a freaking Star Guardian skin and it's only on Wild Rift.
The Uvikat are something close to lizards, though they do have the ability to shapeshift. Out of all of the other tribes, these are the closest to their pure blood ancestors. And we also technically have the Marai, the fish people whom I doubt are going to be playable. Imagine modeling boots for them. Now, these were the more pure blood tribes, but there are many more Vastaya who...
Sorry, before he continues, didn't we look at... Hang on. Last time I did this, I had like a million tabs open. Didn't we look at this and then we saw that there's like space? Yeah, for more islands anyway.
Don't fit any of these. For example, Set has an Ionian Vastaya.
He looks so good in Wild Rift.
Many more Vastaya who don't fit any of these. For example, Set has an Ionian Vastayan mother and a Noxian human father, so he doesn't really have a tribe. Long story short, the Vastaya are an incredibly versatile race, and Riot can use them in a
Why does a
million
phone game look
different
better than
ways.
League? Because League is full of hardcore, sweaty people that get really mad whenever they change anything. Do you remember when we were looking at the original League models, and you guys all in the chat were like, damn, I really miss these ones. I hated them on the screen. And we're literally like looking at fucking blocks walking around.
This is where they can really go.
I hated it when they changed the old Summer's Rift map. There you go. There you go. I don't want to look at blocks. I want, imagine, could you imagine a world where the PC League looks like Wild Rift?
Wild. But that's it for the Vastaya. So now, let's have a look at the third most popular race, the Yordles.
The
These are the
Yordles!
classic RPG tiny people. In League of Legends, people either adore them or hate them. There is no in between. Kinda like those guys. But not those guys, everyone hates them. There is no doubt in
What was that? Gnomes?
everyone hates them. There is no doubt in my mind that Yordles will be playable, even though they have an interesting catch. You see, unlike all the other races on Runeterra, Yordles are immortal. They are essentially modes of magic that come from a hidden magical realm known as Bandle City. And because they are made of magical essence, when they die, we don't really know what happens. But we assume they return to the Bandle City and there they respawn. With that said, the lore suggests that maybe Yordles can die, but they just can't die of old age. But let's ignore that, that's a massive rabbit hole. So, you know, when it comes to gameplay, at least corpse running is going to make sense for them. Now, because Yordles are immortal, in
What if
most
they make them
cases, they are
unplayable?
always happy and cheerful.
What if they bring it out, they make Yordles unplayable, but you can make a human, but you can choose where like the human comes from. And then they release Yordles later, but you have to buy it. Oh my god. They would make so much money. Yordles are one of the most liked race in League.
Even their home realm is very colorful because of that. But then there is also Vex, a Yordle champion who has recently been added into League of Legends, who gives Yordles an interesting perspective. You see, unlike all the other Yordles, Vex hates living. She hates the bright colors and the cheerfulness. You know, it's the average League player. So Vex is constantly in deep depression and agony. All she wishes for is to leave this world, but
Vex reached into her bottomless well of despair, hoping to drive the stake of misery deeper into his heart. I know it's a downer, but the whole point of life is death. Death? Whimpered Uncle Milty. Yeah, and the worst part of it all, Yordles don't even get to do that. We just go on forever, doomed to a stupid, magical, pointless existence.
she can't, because Yordles can't die. Anyway, just like all the other races, Yordles can be found all around Runeterra. There is Poppy in Demacia, Kled in Noxus, Kennen in Ionia, Rumble in Shurima, and so on. But now, so far we have only covered the races which I'm pretty sure will launch with the MMO. The humans, the Vastaya and the Yordles are the core of this world. So now we are diving into the races that still exist in this universe. But it's going to be up to Riot if they make them playable. First of all, there are the Minotaurs. The Minotaurs are different from the Vastaya because they don't have magical ancestors. They are just a standalone race.
How did they
Originally,
come
the Minotaurs
about?
controlled the mountains south of Noxus. But because Noxus is Noxus, soon they absorbed the Minotaurs into their empire. With that said, some Minotaurs fled the tyranny of Noxus and they joined the other regions.
Do you think it's the same as the Vastaya? I reckon they'll only have a couple of these anomaly races. The rest will be added later.
A great example is Kryl, the Minotaur fighting
Yeah, money,
in the
money,
elite
money,
armies
money.
of Demacia. And yes, the Minotaurs also have the stereotypical sexy female version in this universe, so they can easily be turned into a playable race.
Golly.
Next, in Bilgewater, there is an incredible amount of weird fishy people. A lot of these could be really cool playable races when Bilgewater
Whoa, that's so cool. He's got like shark chi.
its expansion. Although modeling helmets for a hammerhead shark is going to be interesting. We also can't forget about the trolls. Previously I showed you the ice trolls, but there are also the sand trolls. And here's an interesting fact for League veterans. We have never seen a sand troll, but because of Ezreal's adventures, we know they exist. They should be around Icathia, which is where Jax is from, who also has 3 fingers, by the way. So it is extremely likely that the mysterious Jax is a sand troll.
What's 3 fingers got to do with it?
Trolls are
Oh, the trolls only have 3 fingers. Oh yeah, they only have 3 fingers?
united under Trundle, the self-proclaimed Troll King, who is fighting in the service of Lysandra, who is a baddie even though she is morally right. So since the majority of the trolls are our enemies, I doubt they will be a playable race.
What?
Lastly, let's not forget that this universe also has Yetis.
Didn't we
Fun
read
fact,
about like
before-
how isn't she like keeping something from popping in? So why is she a baddie? What does it mean? She's baddie but morally right. That just sounds good to me. She's the guardian of the gate in the Freljord where the watchers come from. She's ruthless. Alright.
Everything got frozen, the Yeti Civilization was very advanced. They even had their own technology based around magic. In fact, Willump, the Yeti Nunu is riding on, is a hologram from the Yeti technology. But
What?
then, as the civilization disappeared, the Yetis went a bit more ferocious. So no, they won't be playable either. But that's pretty much it for the races. As I mentioned, there aren't too many different kinds, but that's because Riot is avoiding mimicking other RPGs. That's why there are no dwarves or elves here. Runeterra is simply trying to be unique in every way, and so far, it is working. Now, I also have seen some people asking if Darkin will be playable. To which I have to say...
Darkin. Are these the ones that are fused... Like, these, like, they're like weapons. Yeah, okay.
That's like asking if you can play as a god. The Darkin are a corrupted version of the Ascended God Warriors. A single Darkin can annihilate an army of 1,000. In fact, the Darkin known as Aatrox is the only being in existence that managed to kill a celestial god. He stabbed someone wielding the power of the Aspect of War so hard, the Aspect of War died. So no, I don't think Darkin will be playable. Anyway, with all the races covered, assuming Riot is going to use the Origin system, this is what the playable races could look like.
Okay. Whoa. So these are the places... These are the races. Human, Vastaya, Yordle, Minotaur. So what is this about? Is this like where you would be able to start if you chose one of these?
Humans are versatile, they are everywhere, there is not much to mention there. When it comes to the Vastaya, the common tribes can easily appear in Noxus, Piltover and Bilgewater. These are the regions open to everyone. On the other side, the Vastaya are closely linked to spiritual magic, so you will hardly find one in Demacia, since it is a firmly anti-magic region. And somehow, not many Vastaya were ever mentioned in the Freljord, so Riot doesn't have to force them there. But then we have Shurima, Ionia and Targon. Assuming these would be saved for expansions, they could be used to introduce new playable races. Since I doubt all the newcomers remember the names, the Kilash, Lothlan and Otrani are the lion people, bird people and goat people. Nice. When it comes to the Yordles, as I mentioned, they can originate from anywhere. But they do avoid the Freljord and Targon because of the harsh climates. And yes, I know there were some prehistoric Yordles in the Freljord, but after it got covered in ice, they disappeared. And lastly, the Minotaurs can be found in
On the bottom
Demacia and
left.
Noxus.
Okay.
But it does make sense for some of them to flee to the Freljord, and others to travel to Ionia during the invasion. With all of this said, remember, this is just my decently educated opinion. Since the races are pretty much mixed up all over Runeterra, Riot could also lift the limitations and let every race start in every region, and I would be fine with that. Some story would be wonky, but it wouldn't be anything horrible. Although I still believe some racial exclusivity helps the feeling of RPGs. So, all of this is still only the first half of the video. If you wanna take a break and do your business without washing your hands, now's your chance.
Whoa.
This program will continue in 5 seconds.
Okay. 5, 4. Is that Yumi?
Did you wash your hands? Okay, so far we only covered the races, which was definitely still the easy part. The much more difficult part are going to be
That
the
is
classes.
so good looking. Oh my god.
This is where Riot is facing a great challenge. Partially, it's because there are inherently no wrong answers when it comes to designing a class system. You can really make anything work if you put some thought into it. But more than that, Riot is challenged by the setting itself. League of Legends currently has over 160 different champions. They each have unique abilities, and together they can define about 40 different classes. I counted them myself.
40?
From these, Riot has to pick only a handful to be playable, which means the majority of the classes won't make it in, and people who love those classes will be disappointed. Thankfully, I'm not a designer, so instead of trying to figure out how to make this work, I'm going to show you all the cool, unique classes this universe has. And again,
All
because
40 of them.
Pride is a big part of this universe, you'll see that some of these are tied to specific regions. But not the warrior. That one is different in every single region. So let's start with that. The warriors in this universe provide a unique challenge on top of the already difficult decisions. It's because in every region, the fantasy of a warrior is represented by something else. In Demacia, it is the Dauntless Vanguard. These are the classic knights in shiny armor pursuing justice. In Noxus, the traditional warrior would be part of the Trifarian Legion, which is a rank you can achieve after killing your best sparring friend in combat. These guys rarely use shields. In Shurima, the classic warrior is the warrior of the Golden Army. These are fighting for the glory of the Shuriman Emperor. In Piltover, you would have the Enforcers. Simply said, it's the cops. People will know these from Arcane. But in a way, the Wardens are the melee warriors of Piltover. But then, in the Freljord, warriors are represented by the Berserks, either wielding axes or giant blades as they worship the primal god known as the Iron Boar. On Targon, we have the Warriors of Rakor, which are somewhat themed after the classic Spartan armies. Then, in Ionia, the classic warrior is known as a Blade Master, with samurai-styled swords that have a rich history in this region. Also, there are the Vuju Blade Masters, which are on a totally different level.
The more I watch, the more I know, the more I'm like, how the frick are they gonna pull this off?
The Vuju technique is so powerful it was forbidden from using it in combat. The TLDR
They're gonna have to cut out so much. Just like they're gonna have to just strip it back for the first bit. Mind you, they're not in a hurry. Feels like. I only live so long. Okay, they better release it before I have to get a real job. I'm not gonna have any time to play it if I'm not streaming anymore.
Story is that when Noxus invaded Ionia, Master Yi obliterated entire Noxian legions on his own.
Oh, what?
Before Noxians realized how overpowered he was, and they nuked the town where the Vuju Blade Masters were trained.
Oh.
So now there is no more Vuju Blade Masters, just normal Blade Masters. And lastly, the common warrior in Bilgewater would be a brawler. You see, I just named 8 different kinds of warriors. How is Riot going to handle this? I don't know. They could just make one warrior class and then just have the players play out the fantasy while wearing cool armor sets.
Yeah.
Or they could make it so that every origin has a different skin of the class. You know, all the abilities would be the same, they would be doing the same numbers. But when a Noxian swings a weapon, there is a bloody trail. And when an Iceborne Berserk swings a weapon, there is a frosty effect. But again, this is for Riot to figure out. Now I'm just going to show you all the unique and interesting classes from this universe. In Demacia, we have the Mage Seekers. These are the people who hunt down mages. They carry with them a stone disc called the Grey Mark. This is the tool that allows them to absorb magic. So this would be sort of an anti-magic class.
Is there anyone in the game that does
There are also
this?
a lot of iconic Demacian scouts. Also, Demacia has a lot of stories about theaters and bards. But Demacia also brought spotlight onto the Sentinels. The Sentinels of Light are people dedicated to fighting the undead. Because the undead can't really be killed with normal weapons. They use the relic stones that can be forged into any weapon. Be it a crossbow, a gun, a really big gun, or even a sword. Fun fact, in the lore, the Sentinel guns don't have triggers. You have to will it to fire with every fiber of your body. So of course, Lucian canonically fired it with his PP. Lastly,
What?
it with his
It requires control, said Senna. It requires focus. You need to will it to fire with every fiber of your being. Lucian laughed and turned to Senna, one eyebrow raised. Every fiber of my being.
Lastly, this will be unknown to even veteran League players. But Demacia put a really cool twist onto the Paladin class. You see, in League of Legends, when you play as Garen, his ultimate is to smite his enemies with a giant
Wait a second, these are two different people?
holy blade. This made people wonder, is Garen a mage? In Demacia? Actually, no. In the lore, Garen has never done anything even similar to this. And that's because there is something even cooler happening. Most people in Demacia pray to the aspect of justice, which they call the Winged Protector. That's why Demacia has a lot of angelic statues.
Galileo!
Coincidentally, the aspect of justice can also be found in League, its scale. So what's happening
Oh my god, that is beautiful!
has a lot of angelic statues. Coincidentally, the aspect of justice can also be found in League, its scale. So what's happening is that when Garen is casting his ultimate, it is not him magically creating a holy blade in the sky. It is actually the aspect of justice answering his call. So even though this universe doesn't really have a paladin class, which would be casting holy spells, this would be a really cool alternative. People who worship the aspect of justice and let her answer their calls. Pretty cool.
So Kain is the aspect of justice. What's Morgana again?
Let's move on to Noxus. Noxians are one of the only regions who harvest black powder, so they also have their own mercenaries with functional guns. In Noxus you can also find a lot of demonic cultists, so I would expect a warlock or a demon summoner, and they also have a few renowned assassin guilds. And the most unique of them all, Noxus also has a circle of hemomancers, people who follow Vladimir, a lord who used to be a hostage to the Darkin, and who eventually learned how to use their blood magic. So these people use the very same blood magic that shaped the Darkin. Then in Shurima, we may find Arcane Mages. These people follow Zerath, the most powerful mage on Runeterra.
What?
Whose body has been reduced to nothing but arcane energy. I would honestly love to see this class in-game, because I love the idea of having an Archon form on cooldown. Shurima also has some prophets who can open up tiny portals into the void and summon tiny void creatures. It would be sort of like Warlock in WoW. You know, use the power of the enemy against themselves. Then there are the Sand Shifters, people who can use the sand to create sand mirror images. And we can't forget about the Chronomancers.
Zillion!
People who use time magic in a lot of creative, interesting ways. Then in Piltover, riding off of the success of Arcane, people will want to play as a Warden, which is a more elite version of the Enforcers. These would be equipped with sniper rifles and stun grenades. On the crafty side, there are also the Hextech Engineers. These are the people who can use science to allow them to wield magic even if they are not mages. And separate from them, there are also the Artificers.
Knew all
To
about
them,
that.
anything from a powerful arm to blade legs should be possible. And down in Zone, I would love to see some kind of an alchemist who's using questionable drugs to help his allies. Next we go into the Freljord. Here we can find the Draklorn Inquisitors, which are Lysandra's followers with abilities themed around true ice. Essentially,
So
these
a
would
lot of you in the chat said that if you were interested in starting in Freljord, right?
be Frost Battle Mages. But perhaps the most iconic for the Freljord would be the Shamans. These worship the animalistic primal gods of the Freljord, and all their abilities mimic the primal gods, be it a bear, a fox, a mammoth, or a boar. Then on Targon we would find a lot of people with celestial powers.
Who's
You know,
that?
calling down stars and such. But there are also the Solari who use the power of the sun to enhance their attacks. They also wear massive plated armor, so this would be the tank class. Or the Lunari who use the power of the moon to stay in the shadows. This would be more of an assassin class. Besides these, there are also a lot of Starcallers around, and even Draconic worshippers. Then in Ionia, besides the Vuju Blade Masters, which would be
Starcaller.
far too overpowered.
Who's a Starcaller? In TFT, Soraka. Is that it? Is it just Soraka? But I thought she was a goat.
Some people choose to fight without a blade. These would be the monks of Hirana. They channel the power of Ionian dragons to empower their limbs. And don't worry, they are a bit different from the traditional monks. They are far more badass. Think less Bruce Lee and more Dragon Ball. But of course, Ionia is also home to the Kinku ninjas. Their goal is to maintain balance in Ionia. This means that when a spirit starts killing people, the ninjas go out and deal with the spirit. And when people start terrorizing the spirits, the ninjas go out and deal with the people. Most of these are your classic ninjas empowered with spiritual magic. But some are using the forbidden shadow technique. And while they surely look evil, just like anything in League of Legends, it's not really one-sided. These ninjas are simply using questionable techniques to protect their homeland. And honestly, the Shadow Ninjas are so iconic for Ionia, I really do believe.
Is anyone
they
in the
will be
game
back.
a Shadow
Then we get to
Ninja?
Bilgewater. Besides all the things that you could do with pirates and monster hunters, the
Whoa.
most iconic class of this
Zed?
place are the priests of Buru.
Fucking Zed. Fuck Zed. I fucking hate that guy.
The Buru worship the god of motion called Nagake Boros. While they are priests, they fight with full physical strength, while borrowing power from the god to empower themselves. Usually this means the god spawns tentacles to smack the enemies around. But they also have healing powers, so that would be a really cool support class.
What about Tom
In Riot
Kench?
RPG called Ruined King, you can play as Ilawi,
Yeah.
the high priestess of Nagake Boros. And there you can see all the attacks she can pull off. And this takes us to the last place, Ishtal, which will most likely be saved for an expansion. As I mentioned in the last video, Ishtal specializes in only one thing: elemental magic. So if elemental mages become a class, and they should, even in League elemental dragons are a core mechanic, they would come from Ishtal. But that's it for all the unique classes this universe has to offer. Funnily enough, when I was drafting all these classes, I realized a lot of them fall under specific categories.
Ah. Support, rogue, summoner, mage, hybrid, gunslinger, warrior. Yeah, I suppose. Damn, this guy does a lot of work.
So going with the skin idea for all the classes wouldn't be too unreasonable. But developing so many artistic variations of the classes would be taxing. So overall, I believe Riot should not care about disappointing some players for not including their favorite class. With so many options, it's going to happen anyway. Instead, pick a couple of classes that simply make sense for you. You know, a Blade Master here, an Arcane Mage there, and just have fun. Having fun during development usually translates into great experiences. And I hope I'm not pressuring anyone by stirring up hype. If anything, I'm just happy that people find these videos interesting. And all I'm doing is presenting information that Riot released over the past 10 years. I mean, I know the video is interesting because Asmon only paused 3 times and he said,
"That's fucking cool."
And
I like it a lot.
And
That's what the fuck? This is actually really cool. I didn't know any of this.
that to me marks a big success. Next time we are going to talk about all the already established raid bosses of this universe. Which is a very personal topic for me. You know, I am a father, my son is 2 years old. So by the time this MMO comes out, he's going to be just the right age to heal my raids.
Oh! I gotta know what the comments are saying. It could be an option for the Riot to make a scaled down version of Path of Exile. Bleh! No. I really hope at A, it will be set in a third person perspective instead of top down. Haven't they already confirmed it's not gonna be? B, they lean into the ability to roleplay. Not only is it a great activity if you're into it, yada 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 yada. Okay, this guy roleplays. They could go with base classes that lead to region specific second classes. Then use future expansions to introduce more second classes. Like subclasses. Yeah.